Marcus Chen stood at the edge of the landing platform, watching the massive alien transport ship descend through Earth's atmosphere. The ship was beautiful in a terrifying way, all flowing curves and crystalline surfaces that seemed to bend light around them. 3 months ago, he'd been dodging plasma fire from ships just like this one in the Kepler system. Now, apparently, he was about to inherit something from their king. The war had ended 6 weeks ago with humanity's unexpected victory, though Marcus still wasn't sure how they'd managed it. The Zalani Empire had superior technology, superior numbers, and had been conquering star systems for centuries before humans even discovered fire. Yet somehow, Earth's ragtag fleet had not only held them off, but forced them to surrender. Marcus touched the scar on his left temple, a souvenir from the Battle of Titan's Gate. He'd lost half his unit that day, good soldiers who'd never see home again. The metal in his pocket felt heavier than it should. The Star of Valor, they called it. All he remembered was dragging wounded Marines to safety while alien fighters screamed overhead. The transport ship settled onto the platform with barely a whisper of sound. Marcus had expected something loud and dramatic, but Zalani technology was eerily quiet. The ship's hull shimmered for a moment, then sections of it simply faded away, revealing an opening large enough for several people to walk through side by side. "Sergeant Chen?" The voice belonged to a woman in a crisp diplomatic uniform. She approached with the kind of confident stride that spoke of important missions and classified briefings. "I'm Ambassador Collins. Thank you for coming." Marcus straightened automatically, old military habits kicking in. "Ma'am, I have to admit I'm still not clear on why I'm here." Ambassador Collins smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Join the club? This whole situation is unprecedented. King Thaindar of the Zalani specifically requested you by name. According to their customs, he's transferring ownership of something to you as part of the peace negotiations." "Ownership of what?" "We're not entirely sure. The translation protocols are still being refined, but it appears to be some kind of companion animal, possibly ceremonial in nature." They walked toward the alien ship together, their footsteps echoing on the metal platform. Marcus felt a familiar knot in his stomach, the same feeling he'd had before every combat mission. Something about this didn't feel right. "Why me specifically?" he asked. "That's what we're hoping to find out. King Thaindar mentioned your actions during the war. He seems to have taken particular notice of how you treated Zalani prisoners." Marcus remembered that. After the Battle of Proxima Station, his unit had captured a group of wounded Zalani soldiers. Command had wanted to interrogate them immediately, but Marcus had insisted they receive medical treatment first. It had seemed like basic human decency at the time, nothing special. As they approached the ship's entrance, Marcus could see figures moving inside. The Zalani were tall and elegant, with skin that shifted color based on their emotions and elongated limbs that moved with fluid grace. Even knowing they'd been enemies, Marcus had to admit they were beautiful in an otherworldly way. A group of them emerged from the ship, led by a figure that could only be King Thaindar himself. The Zalani king was nearly 8 feet tall, his skin currently a deep blue that indicated formal ceremony. He wore robes that seemed to be made of liquid starlight, and his large, dark eyes held an intelligence that made Marcus uncomfortable. "Sergeant Marcus Chen," King Thaindar said, his voice carrying the musical quality common to all Zalani speech. "The human who shows mercy in the midst of war." Marcus wasn't sure how to respond to that. He settled for a simple nod. "Your Majesty, I have studied your kind extensively during our conflict," the king continued. "You are a fascinating species. Most races, when faced with superior force, either surrender immediately or fight with desperate brutality. Humans do neither. You fight with calculated courage and show kindness to those who would destroy you. It is perplexing." "I was just doing my job, sir." King Thanedar's skin shifted to a lighter shade of blue, which Marcus had learned indicated amusement. Yes, this is what makes you so interesting. You consider basic mercy to be simply your job. Tell me, Sergeant, what do you know of the Corvani? The name meant nothing to Marcus. He shook his head. They were a species we encountered 3 cycles ago. Fierce warriors, excellent tacticians. They fought us for 7 years before we conquered their homeworld. When we finally defeated them, they cursed us with their dying breath. They said we would face a species that would teach us the meaning of honor, even in defeat. Marcus felt increasingly uncomfortable with the direction this conversation was taking. I'm not sure I understand what this has to do with me, Your Majesty. The Corvani left us a gift of sorts, a creature they had been trying to tame for generations. They said it would only bond with a species worthy of its respect. We have tried for 3 cycles to earn that bond. Every Zilani who has attempted it has been rejected, often violently. One of the king's attendants stepped forward, carrying what looked like an elaborate cage made of the same flowing metal as their ships. Inside, Marcus could see something moving, but the material seemed to bend light in ways that made it difficult to focus on. The creature is called a Fenrir in your human mythology, though the Corvani had their own name for it. It is intelligent, possibly more so than either of our species. It can speak, though it chooses not to with us. We believe it may respond differently to a human. You want me to take care of an alien wolf? Marcus asked, trying to wrap his head around the situation. I want you to prove that your species deserves the respect you have earned in battle. If this creature accepts you, it will serve as a symbol of the new understanding between our peoples. If it does not... King Thanedar's skin darkened slightly. Then perhaps we have misjudged humanity after all. The cage was set down in front of Marcus, and the light-bending material suddenly became transparent. Inside was indeed a wolf-like creature, but unlike any wolf Marcus had ever seen. It was enormous, easily the size of a small horse, with fur that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Its eyes were a brilliant gold, and they fixed on Marcus with an intelligence that was unmistakably sentient. "Hello?" the creature said, its voice a perfect imitation of human speech. "My name is Coda. I have been waiting for someone worthy of conversation for 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days. The assembled Zilani stepped back in shock. Apparently, this was the first time the creature had spoken to anyone. Marcus knelt down so he was at eye level with the cage. "Hello, Coda. I'm Marcus. Are you okay in there?" Coda tilted his massive head, studying Marcus intently. "That is an interesting first question. Most beings ask what I am or what I can do for them. You ask if I am okay. Well, are you? That cage doesn't look very comfortable." "It is not. But I have endured worse. The Zilani mean no harm, but they do not understand what I am. They see a weapon to be controlled or a prize to be won. What do you see?" Marcus thought about it seriously. Looking at Coda, he saw intelligence, dignity, and something that reminded him of the military working dogs he'd known. Loyalty earned, not commanded. "I see someone who's been imprisoned by people who don't understand him," Marcus said finally. Coda's ears perked up, and Marcus could swear he saw the wolf smile. "Acceptable. I will come with you, Marcus Chen, who shows mercy in war. But know this, I am not a pet to be owned. I am Coda of the Corvani, last of the Fenrir pack. If you treat me as an equal, I will stand with you. If you treat me as property, I will leave, and you will not find me again." King Thanedar stepped forward, his skin now showing patterns of deep purple that indicated profound respect. "Remarkable. In 3 cycles, it has spoken fewer than 10 words to any of us. Yet with you..." "Maybe that's because I asked how he was feeling instead of what he could do for me," Marcus said, standing up. He looked at the cage's locking mechanism, which appeared to be made of the same flowing metal as everything else Zilani. How do I open this? One of the king's attendants moved to help, but King Thaindar stopped him with a raised hand. If the creature truly accepts you, it will open itself. Marcus looked at Coda. Can you get out of there on your own? I have been able to leave this cage since the day they put me in it, Coda replied calmly. I simply chose not to. There was nowhere worth going. The cage suddenly flowed apart like liquid mercury, leaving Coda standing free on the platform. Several of the Zalani guards reached for their weapons, but King Thaindar gestured for them to stand down. Coda stretched, revealing his true size. He was even more impressive outside the cage, his dark fur rippling with each movement. He padded over to Marcus and sat down beside him, his head nearly level with Marcus's chest. So, Coda said conversationally, what happens now? Do you have a place where we can discuss the terms of our partnership? Marcus looked around at the assembled diplomats and alien dignitaries, all staring at him with expressions ranging from curiosity to barely controlled fear. He had the distinct feeling that his life had just become infinitely more complicated. I guess we figure it out together, he said. Ambassador Collins stepped forward, clearly trying to regain some control of the situation. Sergeant Chen, we'll need to arrange quarters for you and Coda at the diplomatic facility. There will be extensive debriefings, medical examinations, psychological evaluations. Coda's ears flattened against his head, and a low growl rumbled from his chest. No examinations, no evaluations. I am not a laboratory specimen. It's for security reasons, Ambassador Collins explained, though she took a step back as she said it. Whose security? Coda asked pointedly. Mine or yours? Marcus held up a hand. We can discuss the details later. Right now, I think everyone needs time to process what just happened here. He looked at King Thaindar. Your Majesty, is there anything else you need from us? Only time will tell if this partnership bears the fruit I hope for, the king replied. The Corvani believed that the Fenrir would know true honor when they encountered it. If they were correct, then perhaps there is hope for lasting peace between our species. As the Zalani began to file back onto their ship, Marcus found himself standing alone with Coda and a dozen confused-looking humans. The weight of expectation was almost crushing. Somehow, his relationship with this alien wolf had become a symbol for the entire future of human-Zalani relations. No pressure, he muttered. Coda looked up at him with those brilliant gold eyes. You are correct. There should be no pressure. Honor cannot be forced, and partnership cannot be demanded. It must grow naturally, like trust between warriors who have fought side by side. Have you fought in wars before? I have seen more battles than you can imagine, Marcus Chen. The Corvani were warriors first and everything else second. I learned strategy and tactics before I learned to hunt. But I have never fought alongside a human. Marcus felt a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Well, hopefully we won't have to fight anyone. The war's over. Coda's expression became serious. Is it? Wars between species rarely end with a single treaty. There will be those on both sides who cannot accept peace. And there are other threats in the galaxy, ones that neither human nor Zalani have faced yet. What kind of threats? That, Coda said, standing and padding toward the transport vehicles, waiting to take them to the diplomatic facility, is a conversation for when we are somewhere more private. For now, know this. You have gained an ally today, Marcus Chen, but you have also inherited the enemies of my people. I hope you are prepared for what that means. As they walked away from the landing platform, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that his quiet post-war life had just ended before it really began. But looking at Coda, he realized he wasn't afraid. For the first time since the war ended, he felt like he had a purpose again. Behind them, the Zalani ship rose silently into the sky, leaving them alone with the implications of what had just occurred. Marcus Chen, Army veteran and former sergeant, was now the partner of the last Fenrir in the galaxy. He just hoped he was worthy of the trust that Coda had placed in him. 3 weeks had passed since Marcus first met Coda, and their arrangement had settled into something resembling a routine. The diplomatic facility had provided them with a comfortable suite of rooms, though Coda rarely used the expensive bed that had been specially designed for him. He preferred to sleep on the floor near Marcus's bed, claiming it was better for maintaining awareness of potential threats. Marcus was learning that Coda took security very seriously indeed. "You cannot simply walk to the market without scanning for exit routes," Coda was saying as they returned from what was supposed to be a simple grocery run. "And when that merchant asked too many questions about where you served during the war, you should have ended the conversation immediately." "He was just being friendly," Marcus replied, setting down bags of food on their kitchen counter. "Not everyone is a spy." "No, but some are, and the consequences of assuming wrong are permanent." Coda padded to the window and looked out at the city below. "3 vehicles have followed the same route as us for the past 4 days. Today there were 5. Marcus joined him at the window. The view showed the sprawling metropolis of New Geneva, headquarters of the Earth Defense Coalition, and now the center of interspecies diplomacy. He couldn't see anything that looked suspicious, but he'd learned to trust Coda's senses. "You think we're being watched?" "I know we are being watched. The question is by whom, and why?" Coda's ears twitched. A sign Marcus had learned indicated the alien wolf was processing multiple streams of information simultaneously. "The official monitoring is obvious and expected. Ambassador Collins has assigned no fewer than 6 agents to observe us, though they believe they are being subtle." 6 agents? Marcus felt a flicker of annoyance. "She said we'd have privacy to adjust." "Politicians always lie, Marcus. It is not personal malice, simply their nature. But there are others watching us as well. Zalani intelligence operatives, certainly. Human military personnel who believe I might be a security risk. And something else." "Something else?" Coda turned from the window, his golden eyes serious. "There have been inquiries about us through networks that predate both human and Zalani civilization, old channels of communication, the kind used by species that prefer to remain hidden." Marcus sat down heavily on the couch. In 3 weeks, his understanding of the galaxy had been completely overturned. According to Coda, there were dozens of intelligent species scattered across their local star cluster, most of whom preferred to avoid contact with younger civilizations like humans and Zalani. Some were peaceful traders and scholars, others were decidedly not. The Corvani believed that the galaxy was entering a period of great change, Coda continued, settling onto the floor near Marcus's feet. They had prophecies, you might call them, though they were based more on careful observation of historical patterns than mysticism. Every few million years, something happens that reshapes the balance of power among star-faring species. What kind of something? Sometimes it is the rise of a new empire that conquers everything in its path. Sometimes it is a natural disaster that destroys entire civilizations. But most often, it is the emergence of a species with capabilities that change the fundamental nature of conflict itself. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "And you think humans might be that species? The evidence is compelling. Consider what happened during your war with the Zalani. They had every advantage. Better technology, superior numbers, centuries of military experience. Yet you not only defeated them, you did so in a way that forced them to respect you rather than simply fear you. We got lucky. If Admiral Torres hadn't figured out how to modify our shield generators..." "Luck?" Coda's expression was almost amused. "Your Admiral Torres reverse-engineered Zalani shield technology in 3 months, something that took the Zalani themselves centuries to develop." Your pilots flew ships held together with improvised repairs and somehow outmaneuvered vessels that cost more than your entire planetary budget. Your soldiers faced odds that should have been impossible and found ways to win anyway. That is not luck, Marcus. That is something far more dangerous. Before Marcus could respond, his communication device chimed with an incoming message. The display showed Ambassador Collins' official seal. Sergeant Chen, please report to Conference Room Alpha immediately. Bring Coda. We have a situation. Marcus and Coda exchanged glances. In the 3 weeks they'd been at the facility, they'd been largely left alone, except for the occasional diplomatic briefing. Urgent summons were new. Guess we'll find out what's going on, Marcus said, standing up. We already know what is going on, Coda replied, following him toward the door. The Watchers have decided to make their move. Conference Room Alpha was filled with tension, thick enough to cut with a knife. Ambassador Collins sat at the head of a long table, flanked by military officers Marcus didn't recognize, and several Zilani officials. At the far end of the table, a holographic display showed a star map with several systems highlighted in red. Sergeant Chen, Coda, please take a seat, Collins said without preamble. We've received some disturbing intelligence. One of the Zilani officials, whose skin patterns Marcus recognized as indicating extreme agitation, gestured toward the star map. 3 of our border colonies have gone silent in the past week. Long-range sensors detect no signs of battle, no debris fields, no distress signals. They simply stopped communicating. A human admiral Marcus didn't recognize leaned forward. Initial investigation suggested technical failures or natural phenomena. However, we've now received reports from other species claiming similar disappearances. What other species? Marcus asked. That's classified, the Admiral replied curtly. Coda's ears flattened. Admiral, with respect, I have lived in this galaxy far longer than your entire species has existed. If you wish my assistance, you cannot treat me like a security risk. You are a security risk, the Admiral shot back. You're an unknown alien entity with capabilities we don't understand, bonded to a single human soldier. For all we know, this entire situation is connected to your presence here. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Marcus felt the hair on his arm stand up, and he realized that Coda was doing something with electromagnetic fields that he didn't understand. Admiral, Coda said, his voice carrying harmonics that made everyone in the room uncomfortable. I am Coda of the Corvani, last keeper of the Fenrir protocols. My people mapped this galaxy when yours were still learning to make fire. I have forgotten more about interspecies conflict than your entire civilization has learned. You may question my loyalty, but do not question my knowledge. Ambassador Collins held up her hands before the situation could escalate further. Everyone calm down. Admiral Harrison, Coda has been cleared at the highest levels. Coda, we appreciate your expertise, but threatening our personnel isn't helping anyone. I was not threatening, Coda replied mildly. I was simply correcting a misunderstanding about our relative positions in this discussion. The Zilani official who had spoken first gestured for attention. If I may, we believe the disappearances are connected to an ancient threat. Our historical archives contain references to entities known as the Devourers, beings that consume entire civilizations and leave nothing behind. Fairy tales, Admiral Harrison scoffed. Coda's entire posture changed, his relaxed demeanor vanishing in an instant. What exactly did your archives say about the Devourers? Very little. The records are fragmentary, mostly second-hand accounts from refugee populations. They speak of ships that appear without warning, weapons that unmake matter at the molecular level, and some kind of collective intelligence that learns and adapts with each civilization it encounters. How long ago were these accounts recorded? Approximately 50,000 years. Marcus watched Coda's expression carefully. The alien wolf's eyes had gone completely flat, the way they did when he was accessing deep memories or processing complex strategic problems. 50,000 years, Coda repeated slowly. That would be the fourth cycle. The Corvani kept records from that time, passed down through genetic memory banks. He looked around the room. The Devourers are not fairy tales. They are a recurring phenomenon, and if they have returned, then every intelligent species in this galaxy is in mortal danger. Explain, Collins said simply. Coda stood and walked to the holographic display, studying the highlighted systems. The Devourers operate on a cycle roughly 60,000 years long. They emerge from wherever they retreat to, systematically harvest the galaxy's intelligent life, then disappear again for another cycle. The pattern has repeated at least 7 times that we know of. Harvest? Marcus asked, though he was afraid he already knew the answer. They consume not just populations, but the accumulated knowledge and technology of entire civilizations. Everything that makes a species unique, their art, their science, their way of thinking, becomes part of the Devourer collective. The victims don't just die, they become resources for the enemy. Admiral Harrison looked skeptical. If this has happened 7 times before, how do you know about it? Because some species survive each cycle. Usually those that are either too primitive to be worth harvesting or too well hidden to be found. The Corvani were survivors of the 7th cycle. We spent the next 60,000 years preparing for the 8th cycle, building weapons and strategies specifically designed to fight the Devourers. And how did that work out for you? The Admiral asked pointedly. Coda's expression darkened. The Zilani arrived first. By the time we realized that the 8th cycle had begun early, it was too late to implement our preparations. The Corvani died fighting the wrong enemy. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Finally, Ambassador Collins spoke. You're saying that humanity and the Zilani accidentally prevented you from preparing for a threat that could destroy all life in the galaxy? Not all life, Coda corrected. The Devourers are selective. They harvest intelligence and technology, not random biomass. But yes, the timing of your war disrupted preparations that had been 60,000 years in the making. Marcus felt a sick certainty settling in his stomach. That's why you came with me, isn't it? Not because of some ancient prophecy about honor? Because you need our help to fight something that your people couldn't handle alone. Coda met his eyes directly. Both things are true, Marcus. The Corvani prophecies spoke of a species that would show honor even to their enemies, courage in the face of impossible odds, and the ability to find solutions that others could not see. Everything I have observed about humanity suggests that you are that species. But you also need us, Marcus said. I need you, Coda agreed. The Corvani built weapons specifically designed to fight the Devourers, but those weapons require a particular kind of intelligence to operate effectively. Something that combines strategic thinking with intuitive leaps, the ability to see patterns that pure logic would miss. Admiral Harrison laughed harshly. So now we're supposed to believe that humans are the galaxy's chosen warriors? That's remarkably convenient. Before anyone could respond, the holographic display flickered and changed. Instead of the star map, it now showed a feed from deep space monitoring stations. A formation of ships was moving through the outer edge of human territory, but they were like nothing Marcus had ever seen. They seemed to bend light around themselves, making them difficult to focus on. And they moved with perfect coordination despite their enormous size. The Titan's Gate monitoring station picked this up an hour ago, Collins said quietly. 12 vessels, each one larger than our biggest dreadnoughts, moving directly toward Earth. Marcus stared at the display, his mind automatically calculating vectors and arrival times. How long do we have? At their current speed, approximately 72 hours. Coda was studying the ships intently, his entire body tense with concentration. These are scout vessels, advanced units meant to test defenses and gather intelligence. The main fleet will arrive after these ships have reported back. How many ships in a main fleet? Collins asked. For a target as significant as Earth and New Zealand combined? Conservative estimate would be 10,000 vessels, each one capable of sterilizing a planet. The number hit the room like a physical blow. Marcus felt the same sensation he'd experienced during his first combat mission, the moment when theoretical danger became immediate, life-threatening reality. "What do we do?" he asked. Coda turned from the display, his golden eyes burning with fierce determination. "We show the galaxy why the Corvani believed in humanity. We prepare for war against an enemy that has never been defeated, using weapons that were designed to be operated by a partnership between species that no longer exists." "Except it does exist," Marcus said, understanding flooding through him. "The partnership between humans and the last Fenrir." "Between humans and the last Fenrir," Coda agreed. "If we can access the Corvani weapon caches and adapt their technology to work with human tactical thinking, we might have a chance. Not a good chance, but a chance." Admiral Harrison stood up abruptly. "This is insane. You're talking about rebuilding an extinct civilization's war machine in 3 days, based on the word of an alien wolf and some ancient fairy tales." "Do you have a better plan?" Coda asked mildly. "We evacuate Earth, fall back to the outer colonies, rebuild our fleets, fight a long defensive campaign." The Devourers have been fighting long defensive campaigns for millions of years. Every species that has tried that strategy is extinct. They learn, Admiral. Every battle makes them stronger. Every captured ship or piece of technology adds to their capabilities. The only way to defeat them is to hit them with something they have never encountered before. Marcus stood up as well, his decision crystallizing. "Where are these weapon caches?" "Scattered across 17 star systems, most of them in territory that is currently contested between various species. Retrieving them will require fast ships, expert pilots, and the kind of military thinking that treats impossible odds as merely challenging." "Sounds like a job for humans," Marcus said with a grim smile. Ambassador Collins looked around the room, reading the faces of her military advisors. "Sergeant Chen, I can't authorize this kind of operation based on unverified intelligence from an unknown source." "Then don't authorize it officially," Marcus replied. "Give me a small ship and a volunteer crew. If we're wrong, you can disavow any knowledge of our actions. If we're right, then Marcus Chen and his alien partner just became the most important military asset in human history," Coda finished. As the meeting broke up into smaller groups of urgent conversations, Marcus found himself standing with Coda near the holographic display, watching the Devourer scout ships advance toward Earth. "Tell me honestly," Marcus said quietly, "what are our real chances?" "The Corvani spent 60,000 years preparing for this fight and still lost," Coda replied. "But they did not have humans as allies. Your species has a talent for finding ways to win fights that should be impossible. I have never seen anything like it. And if that's not enough," Coda's expression was utterly serious, "then the 8th cycle ends with the galaxy stripped of all intelligent life, and the Devourers return to their hibernation until the 9th cycle begins. But I do not believe that will happen." "Why not?" "Because I have fought beside Marcus Chen, and I have seen what he does when the situation is hopeless. He finds a way to make it merely dangerous." Despite everything, Marcus found himself smiling. In 3 weeks, his quiet, post-war life had become the center of an ancient galactic conflict. He should have been terrified. Instead, for the first time since the war ended, he felt like he was exactly where he belonged. The hunt for the Corvani weapons was about to begin. The stolen Zalani corvette Shadow Dancer dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, its hull scarred from 3 days of running battles with various hostile forces. Marcus checked the navigation display and confirmed their position. They were finally at the location of the primary Corvani weapons cache. "Detecting massive artificial structures on the fourth planet," reported Lieutenant Sarah Kim, the best pilot Marcus had been able to recruit for this insane mission. "Whatever's down there, it's big enough to see from orbit. And old enough that local pirates have been trying to break into it for centuries," added Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez, who was monitoring long-range sensors from the engineering station. "I'm reading at least 50 abandoned ships in various orbits around the planet. Some of them are barely holding together." Marcus looked over at Coda, who was connected to the ship's computer systems through a neural interface that still made the human crew nervous. The alien wolf's eyes were closed in concentration as he processed data streams that would have overwhelmed any human mind. "The vault is intact," Coda announced, opening his eyes. "But there are complications. The Devourer scouts have been active in this system for the past 6 hours. They are attempting to breach the vault's defenses themselves." "They know about the Corvani weapons?" Marcus asked, feeling his stomach drop. "They know about everything, Marcus. Remember, they have absorbed the memories and knowledge of every civilization they have consumed. That includes species that fought the Corvani, studied them, learned their secrets. The Devourers understand exactly what threat those weapons represent." Lieutenant Kim turned from her pilot's station, her face grim. "So we're racing them to weapons that could save the galaxy, and they have a head start." "Not exactly," Coda said, his expression thoughtful. "The Devourers are powerful, but they have limitations. They rely on absorbed knowledge and proven strategies. They excel at overwhelming force and technological superiority, but they struggle with genuinely novel approaches to problems." "Meaning what?" Rodriguez asked. "Meaning that the Corvani designed their vault specifically to be opened by minds that think in ways the Devourers cannot anticipate. The locks are not just technological. They are psychological, requiring thought patterns that pure logic cannot achieve." Marcus studied the tactical display, watching the movements of the 3 Devourer scout ships near the planet. They were maintaining a careful formation, methodically working their way through what appeared to be layers of planetary defenses. "How long do we have?" "At their current rate of progress, perhaps 18 hours before they breach the main vault. However, if they detect our presence and realize what we are attempting, they'll throw everything they have at stopping us," Marcus finished. "Even if it means damaging the weapons they want to capture." "Correct. So our approach must be subtle. We cannot simply fight our way to the surface." Lieutenant Kim laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Subtle, right. Because sneaking past alien ships the size of cities is totally within the capabilities of a stolen Corvette held together with spare parts and prayer." Marcus found himself smiling despite the situation. Over the past week of desperate travel between weapon caches, his small crew had proven themselves to be exactly the kind of people he wanted at his side when the impossible needed to be done. Kim could fly anything with engines and several things without them. Rodriguez could repair, modify, or improve any piece of technology given enough time and caffeine. And all of them had volunteered for a mission that every rational person considered pure suicide. "Actually," Marcus said, an idea beginning to form, "subtle might be exactly what we need. Coda, how much do you know about Devourer psychology?" "Extensive amounts, unfortunately. The Corvani studied them for 60,000 years. What are you thinking? They absorb the knowledge and strategies of every species they defeat, right? That makes them incredibly smart, but it might also make them predictable. They know every conventional approach to warfare that has ever been tried." "Yes, this is why they are so difficult to defeat. Any strategy you devise, they have already encountered and developed countermeasures for." "But what if we use a strategy that isn't based on warfare? What if we approach this like a rescue mission instead of an assault?" Coda's ears perked up with interest. "Explain." Marcus pointed to the tactical display. Look at their formation. They're positioned to defend against an attack from space, but they're also focused on breaking through the planetary defenses. What they're not doing is watching for something small and quiet that's trying to help stranded pirates. Lieutenant Kim caught on immediately. We broadcast a distress signal, claimed to be another salvage crew that got caught in the crossfire. The Devourers ignore us because we're not a threat, and we use the distraction to slip down to the surface. It could work, Rodriguez agreed. The ship's beat up enough to sell the story. And if we keep our energy signature low, we might not even register as a military vessel. Coda was quiet for a long moment, processing the implications. This approach has never been attempted against the Devourers, he said finally. In 60,000 years of preparation, the Corvani never considered simply lying about their intentions. It's not lying, Marcus corrected. It's misdirection, making them see what they expect to see instead of what's actually there. Human tactical thinking, Coda said, and Marcus could hear the wonder in his voice. You are not trying to defeat them through superior force or advanced technology. You are trying to defeat them by being something they do not understand. Will it work? I have no idea, which is the most encouraging thing I have heard since this crisis began. The next 3 hours were the longest of Marcus's life. Lieutenant Kim had worked miracles with the ship's engines, reducing their output to the minimum necessary for atmospheric entry while broadcasting a continuous distress signal that painted them as desperate pirates fleeing the Devourer scouts. Rodriguez had sabotaged several non-essential systems to create genuine emergency readings that would support their cover story. The Devourer ships completely ignored them. Either we're the luckiest fools in the galaxy, or Sergeant Chen just proved that the most dangerous weapon in human space is a good lie told with confidence, Kim muttered as they descended through the planet's atmosphere. The surface of Kepler 442 was a wasteland of crystalline formations and ancient ruins. The Corvani vault was built into the side of a mountain, its entrance protected by energy barriers that had kept looters at bay for millennia. But as their ship settled onto a landing pad that had been carved from solid rock, Marcus could see signs of recent activity. Devourer ground forces, Coda reported, studying sensor readings. Approximately 200 units using some kind of quantum drilling equipment to breach the outer barriers. How long before they get through? At their current rate, perhaps 12 hours. But Marcus, there is something else. The vault's internal defenses are still active, and they are more sophisticated than simple barriers. The Corvani built psychological mazes designed to confuse and trap intruders who do not possess the correct mental patterns. Marcus checked his equipment one more time. They had managed to salvage some decent gear from the other weapon caches, including armor that interfaced with Corvani technology and weapons that could theoretically function against Devourer ships. Theoretically. What kind of mental patterns are we talking about? The ability to think in paradoxes, to hold contradictory ideas simultaneously, to find creative solutions under extreme pressure. In essence, everything that made the Corvani effective warriors. And you think humans can do that? Coda's golden eyes met his. Marcus, I have watched you spend 3 weeks learning to trust an alien predator that most of your species considers a potential threat. I have seen you devise tactical solutions that violate every principle of conventional warfare. I have watched you show mercy to enemies while simultaneously preparing to fight a war against impossible odds. If that is not thinking in paradoxes, I do not know what is. The entrance to the vault was a crystalline archway that seemed to bend space around itself. As they approached, Marcus could feel something scanning him, probing not just his body but his thoughts and intentions. State your purpose, a voice spoke directly into his mind, using words that somehow translated automatically into perfect English. We seek the weapons of the Corvani to defend the innocent against the Devourers, Marcus replied, hoping that honesty would work better than clever wordplay. Many have made such claims. Most lied, Some believed themselves sincere but lacked the necessary understanding. What makes you different? Marcus considered the question seriously. What did make him different from all the other treasure hunters and warriors who had attempted this over the centuries? "I'm not here for the weapons," he said finally. "I'm here for my partner. Coda asked for my help and I said yes. Everything else is just details." The scanning sensation intensified, and Marcus felt as though every moment of the past month was being examined and evaluated. His first meeting with Coda, their growing trust, the decisions he had made under pressure, the way he treated both allies and enemies. "Acceptable," the voice said, and the archway filled with soft light. "Enter, Marcus Chen, who shows mercy in war, and Coda of the Corvani, who remembers honor in defeat. The weapons await." The interior of the vault was vast beyond comprehension, with corridors that seemed to stretch into infinity and chambers filled with devices whose purpose Marcus couldn't even guess at. But Coda moved through the maze with confident certainty, following paths that had been genetically encoded into his memory. "Here," Coda said, stopping in front of a chamber filled with crystalline structures that hummed with contained energy. "The resonance cannons. They fire concentrated quantum frequencies that disrupt the molecular bonds holding Devourer ships together." "How many can we carry?" "All of them. The Corvani designed their weapons to be easily transportable. But Marcus, there is something you must understand. These weapons require a bonded pair to operate effectively. One mind to target, another to fire, working in perfect synchronization." Marcus studied the alien technology, trying to understand how it might work. "Like a pilot and gunner?" "More intimate than that. The weapons create a neural link between the operators. You will share thoughts, emotions, tactical instincts. It requires absolute trust between partners. And if the trust isn't strong enough, then the weapons will not function, and we will have made this journey for nothing." Before Marcus could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the vault. The crystalline walls showed tactical displays that revealed Devourer ground forces had broken through the outer defenses and were advancing rapidly through the upper levels. "They have detected us," Coda said, his ears flat against his head. "We have perhaps 20 minutes before they reach this chamber." Marcus began loading the resonance cannons into portable containers, working with the efficient haste that had kept him alive through countless battles. "Can we get back to the ship before they cut us off?" "Unlikely. The path to the surface is too exposed, but there is another option. The vault has emergency transport systems, originally designed to move weapons to battle positions during planetary invasions." "Where would it take us?" "Directly into orbit. The Corvani built their vaults to serve as launch platforms for their war fleets." Marcus paused in his loading. "You're talking about launching ourselves directly at the Devourer ships." "I am talking about bringing the fight to them before they can coordinate a proper defense. The resonance cannons have enough power to disable their scout ships, but only if we can achieve surprise." The sound of approaching Devourer forces echoed through the corridors above them, a rhythmic pounding that spoke of machines designed for nothing but destruction. "Coda," Marcus said, securing the last of the weapons, "I need you to know something before we do this. Whatever happens up there, working with you these past weeks has been an honor." "The honor has been mine, Marcus Chen. Now let us show the Devourers why the Corvani believed that some partnerships transcend death itself." The launch was unlike anything Marcus had ever experienced. One moment they were standing in the vault chamber, the next they were hurtling through space in a crystalline pod that somehow provided breathable atmosphere and artificial gravity. Through the transparent walls, Marcus could see the 3 Devourer scout ships hanging in orbit like mechanical vultures. "Neural link initializing," Coda announced, connecting himself to the pod's weapon systems. "Marcus, place your hands on the targeting interface and clear your mind." Marcus did as instructed, feeling a strange tingling sensation as the alien technology made contact with his nervous system. Suddenly, he could sense Koda's thoughts as clearly as his own, and beyond that, he could feel the resonance cannons responding to their combined mental patterns. "I can see them," Marcus whispered, watching tactical data flow through his consciousness. Their formation, their power distribution, the way their shields are configured. It's like having perfect situational awareness. "Now you understand why the Corvani required bonded pairs to operate these weapons," Koda replied, his thoughts merging seamlessly with Marcus's. "Choose your target." Marcus focused on the nearest Devourer ship, a massive construct that seemed to be made of dark metal and malevolent intent. Through the neural link, he could sense its weak points, the critical systems that maintained its structural integrity. "Firing!" Koda announced, and the resonance cannons discharged with a sound like reality tearing apart. The quantum frequency beam struck the Devourer ship precisely where Marcus had aimed it, and the results were spectacular. The vessel's hull began to vibrate at the molecular level, then suddenly collapsed in on itself as its atomic bonds dissolved. In seconds, a ship the size of a city had been reduced to a cloud of free-floating atoms. "Two more targets," Marcus said, already shifting focus to the next ship. But the remaining Devourer vessels were adapting, their energy patterns changing as they attempted to defend against the quantum frequencies. "They are modifying their molecular structure," Koda observed. "Each shot will be less effective than the last. Then we better make them count." Working in perfect synchronization, Marcus and Koda targeted the second ship's power core, sending a concentrated beam that overloaded its energy systems and caused a chain reaction that destroyed it from within. But the third ship had completed its adaptations, its hull now resistant to the quantum frequencies. "It is learning faster than anticipated," Koda said, his mental voice tinged with worry. "We may only get one more shot." Marcus studied the tactical display, looking for any weakness they could exploit. The Devourer ship was powerful, adaptive, and protected by technology that surpassed anything humans or Zilani had developed. But it was also alone, cut off from the collective intelligence that made the Devourers so dangerous. "Koda, what if we're not trying to destroy it? What if we're trying to capture it?" "That is impossible. The ship's self-destruct systems will activate before—" "What if we target the self-destruct systems themselves?" Through the neural link, Marcus felt Koda's surprise, followed rapidly by understanding and approval. It was a plan that violated every principle of conventional warfare, attempting to capture rather than destroy, to turn the enemy's strength against itself. "The targeting solution is extremely complex," Koda warned. "We will need to hit 17 separate systems simultaneously, with perfect timing and absolute precision." "Can we do it?" "I do not know. But if we succeed, we will have accomplished something that no species has achieved in millions of years: the capture of a functional Devourer vessel." Marcus felt the neural link deepen, his consciousness merging with Koda's, until they were no longer two separate beings but something new, a hybrid intelligence that combined human intuition with Corvani tactical analysis. Through their combined perspective, the solution became clear. "Firing," they said in unison, and 17 separate quantum beams lanced out toward the Devourer ship. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the enemy vessel's lights flickered and went out. Its engines shut down, its weapons powered off, and most importantly, its communication systems went silent, cutting it off from any ability to report what had happened. "We did it," Marcus breathed, feeling the neural link gradually fade as the weapon systems powered down. "We did more than that," Koda replied, staring at the disabled ship. "We have captured intact Devourer technology, along with whatever knowledge that ship had absorbed from conquered civilizations. This could change everything." As their pod drifted toward the captured vessel, Marcus reflected on everything that had happened since he first met Coda on that landing platform. He had started this journey as a retired soldier with no clear purpose. Now he was part of something that could reshape the galaxy's future. "So what happens next?" he asked. Coda's golden eyes gleamed with anticipation. "Now we learn everything that ship knows about the Devourer fleet. We study their technology, understand their strategies, find their weaknesses. And then we teach the rest of the galaxy how to fight an enemy that has never been defeated. And after that, Marcus Chen, we prepare for the real war, because 3 scout ships were just the beginning. The main fleet is coming, and when they arrive, they will find something they have never encountered before, a galaxy that knows how to fight back." Marcus smiled, feeling the familiar sensation of purpose that had guided him through every important moment of his military career. The partnership between Human and Corvani, between Marcus Chen and Coda, had become something greater than either could have achieved alone. They had proven that sometimes the most powerful weapon in the universe was not superior technology or overwhelming force, but the simple ability to think in ways your enemy could not predict. The hunt was over. Now the real work could begin.